There it is. All right. We are live. Welcome to Bo Knows Health, where I'm Bo, still to this day. I know some stuff, and I try to learn more stuff about health, wellness, fitness, all that good stuff. And today we have the pleasure to be joined by Shane Farmer to my right. Always a little confusing, yes, if you're watching on video. And Shane Farmer, you are in San Diego.
Yeah, sunny San Diego.
Sunny San Diego, very cool. Yeah, I did live up in Dana Point, just above San Diego for a little while. Could have just driven down. Could have done this all in person, but that was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So, anyone not familiar with Shane, this is the man behind Dark Horse Rowing. Tell us real quick before we get a little deeper into other stuff. What's the Dark Horse, and in case anyone's not familiar with what is a Dark Horse?
Well, Dark Horse is an underdog. It's the person that I've always enjoyed working with. It may not seem like it now, but in my younger years, my fitness journey was one of an underdog. I was not a gifted athlete growing up, but I love sports. And then as I found my way into coaching in my adult career, I just came to find that those were the people that I enjoyed working with, the people who, weren't getting a shake from performance coaches, who we were just teaching them how to get down to the floor and get back up again under their own power. And I always saw those people as underserved. And I really liked that underdog community. And so Dark Horse just felt pretty natural as a name, and rowing, obviously, that's kind of where I made my bones. I'm very comfortable coaching a lot of different areas, but having, with the career start that I had at Invictus, and I'm sure we can, get into that or not, but rowing became the thing. And so I coached the CrossFit rowing seminar as long as it was around. And then when they wound down specialty courses for CrossFit, I had already kind of taken the course online for Concept 2, and I'm still a master instructor for them. Dark Horse is kind of the resource for, I call them the rowing curious, people who are interested in rowing, but don't identify as rowers. They're just curious about it and they want to know more.
Love it. Love it. I'll share that I did take I believe it was on the CrossFit website. It must have been, and I think it was at Concept 2 headquarters. Is that in Virginia?
Vermont.
That's Vermont.
Yeah.
Maybe that sounds maybe. Yeah, I was in New York, and I was like, when I first got into CrossFit around 2010, a little after you already had your heels deep in there. I went to, I thought it was like their headquarters. Maybe it was another company. I don't even remember. I thought it was maybe down in Virginia or DC, but I thought it was like by Concept 2. So I did that certification back in the day.
Who was the instructor for that? Was that Angela Hart?
It was a female. That sounds right. That absolutely sounds right. Angela Hart. What's up, Kenton? Showing up on the feed here. I believe that sounds correct. Angela Hart. Sure. I'm gonna go with that.
She was the OG coach. I kind of took the torch from her when she was ready to retire.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And so we do have a listener question here. We're gonna pull this up on the screen for anybody listening. I'll just read off what it is, and this is from Josh out of Park Slope, Brooklyn, coming to us. He wanted to know, Shane, are you impressed by this time, and what context do you need to be impressed by this? So for anyone listening, it's 10,000 meters over with a few breaks in there. So 4K, rest 3 minutes, 1K, rest 3 minutes, and a 5K to finish, rest 3 minutes. And he averaged a 147 split. We can talk about what all those numbers mean for anyone not as familiar. I'm guessing if they're listening, though, they might know what some of those numbers mean. But are you impressed? He wants to know, as a big fan of yours. He definitely geeks out. He's a garage gym rowing type dude. He's always throwing challenges at me. So, yes, I think he'll want to know, are you impressed?
Okay. First off, I'm impressed that he's at Brick Grand Central, like throwback to Brick, because man, it's been a while since I've seen the Brick name. Yeah, I mean, first off, I thought this was a 10K to start, and then I saw the rest windows, and I'm fascinated by the structure of this. It like the 4K, 1K, 5K is a really interesting take on it, and also sounds brutal. That 1K, I imagine, feels really sneaky when you come out of that 4K feeling like a little crispy, but like you still have plenty in the tank. If you attack that 1K too hard, you're going to pay for it dearly going into the 5K. Rates, I would say like you could have rated yourself a little bit higher if I'm being judgmental here. I don't know how judgmental.
That's what we want. We want. He's a bro. He's a bro. So
okay, all right. He wants the. All right. Yeah, I'd say you could rate a little bit higher on those, and I think you'd give yourself a little bit of free speed and like get away from a little bit of the grind on it. The 31, that looks appropriate for the 1K. Any higher than that, your heart's gonna explode out of your chest going into the 5K at the end. The 4K, 26 might be fair. The final 5K, I'd try to lift it to maybe a 28, 30. 30 is tough though over 5K. The key really, like when you start getting tired, is you just got to sit up, and it's okay to shorten your stroke a little bit in lieu of gathering a little bit more lightness on the flywheel. So you try not to be as long, try not to be as like forceful, and instead get a little bit, I call it chippy. Try to be a little bit chippier on the stroke, and it helps you last a little bit longer. But overall, 147 for 10,000 meters is no joke. That's a good time.
He's going to be happy to hear that. I thought one of your main questions was going to be, how large is this individual?
Well, I mean, that definitely certainly has a play at things. How large is he?
He's a big boy. He's 6'3", 220.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but it comes with its own curse, right? At 220, like, you're also having to sling a lot of mass around.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would say that's also a testament to like good aerobic fitness underneath a 220 frame. I'm 6'3", but I'm 195. Like, in my wildest dreams, I'd be 220. But I mean, all in all, I'd say good performance on that. The advantage to mass is you can look at a 1K and you can just like sneeze and have a good 1K because you've got enough mass to lean on that handle and just lever your way through it. But to be able to throw down a 144 for 4K is like, yeah, especially at the beginning of that workout. The thing I'd like to see, if I'm, again, being critical, if I'm looking at this and saying, hey, as far as performance base goes, what would I be looking for? I'd be looking for a smaller differential between your 4K and your 5K. I'd rather see like another 144.6 out of your 5K. And I think that'd be a little better showing, in my opinion, because what I'm seeing is critical drop off there, now that may pull from your 1K, right? you may have to temper your 1K and sit there and hit like a 141. But there's no glory in your 1K performance there, right? The overall score is the glory. So if you could be, pulling a 141, but then you're able to pull two 144.6s out of your 4K and your 5K, to me, that shows a little bit better control, understanding your fitness a little bit better.
There you go. I love it. I love the breakdown. I think Josh will appreciate that as well. We'll do a follow-up post with his response there.
Yeah.
You probably are somewhat familiar with the OPT, OPEX, James Fitzgerald, because Invictus, I think, had a lot of roots there. Yep. CJ Martin, I think, took a lot of his beats from there. So you might have even done the more classic one. I worked with James Fitzgerald as my personal coach for quite a few years.
Oh, awesome.
So I had one of my first tests, I think the first like 2 or 3 weeks of working with him to test, one of them was a 60-minute row. That was just like, what do you got? Yeah. What do you got?
Basically, 60-minute FTP test.
Yep. And then the other one was more, I wasn't in that initial test, but it was, I think at a lot of, he would have little competitions. I don't know if you ever went out there to Arizona to the OPT Athlon back when
the Optathlon, man. Yeah, I think number 1 was at Invictus. I competed in it.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Danny Nichols and they like the OG OPT guys.
That's right. But yeah, that just to compare a little bit of similarity to what my friend Josh did there, but it was a 500-meter row, sit on the erg for 90 seconds, and another 500-meter, and your total score was the 1K time. It didn't matter what your splits were, but I think I remember doing that in Scottsdale. I think I did like a 130 and a 135, which I still like, and I'm 5'8" for the size of it all.
Yeah.
And when you go to if you watch the CrossFit Games, right, and you see these different athletes, and we saw it, I think, almost a little more when I was a observer on the female side, a little more than the male side, because guys like Josh Bridges could kind of, I think, struggle their way, because he was a very small human compared to like a Jason Khalipa or Rich Froning, but he managed to hold his own in the rowing. But then on the female side, back in the OG days, again, like a Gretchen Kittelberger, who was very fit, but I think she was giving up a lot of height to a lot of these other females, and you could just see, I think it was a half marathon row one year that they had. I want to say like 2013.
And like Anna Tunnicliffe used to be really good on the rower, like her and Sam, like together. And Sam and Anna would like own the rowing.
For context, they're like 5'11", I think, right? Something like maybe 5'9".
And they were just lean. They were both super lean.
Yeah. So anyway, enough geeking out there. But actually, we're gonna go back.
I'll throw this one out because this is another workout that I love that falls in similar veins, and we use this in rowing as like a good assessment of your 2K preparedness, and it's called the rugby test. And I pulled it up because I want to make sure that I get it right, because it's a rest windows are important too. It's a 1K, 750, 500, 250, 750 with a 3-minute, 230, 2-minute, 2-minute rest. if you want a good challenge, like it's a good assessment of what your current 2K fitness is. And I'm a big fan of like throwing down on that to see where you are. Cause that 750 is always like, how do you approach it? How do you throw down on a 250 right before 750, trying to find that average time? But I have found that it is a decent assessment of what kind of 2K fitness you have behind you at the moment. So rugby test, big fan.
That sounds less scary than just saying 2K for time. To me.
Yeah. Yes. Other than it ends up being 5 rounds. So you just, you feel like you're staring down the barrel of the thing for longer.
But it's just, yeah, but I think there's more, it's like, you don't have as much to compare to, which is what we're talking, one of the things objectively, it's not like you're like, well, yeah, what's your fine? I'd love to hear, I feel like it's maybe we need to move off the geeking out here. I appreciate it all, but I think that, yeah, I'd love to hear how you actually rate that. So I guess, yeah, go for it. Tell us, like, are you looking for the splits, you losing your pacing? Is that what you're looking for there?
Yeah. I mean, you need to make sure that you avoid critical drop off in that workout. And so it's such a fine threshold of tiptoeing at red line on every single piece, understanding what you have next, because on the descent, it's pretty easy. Like you come out your first 1K, you're like, okay, I just need to establish a decent base. It needs to be firm, but I also have to come out of it and feel like I have plenty of juice in the tank.
Right.
Then you get into your 750, then the dread of piece number 2, plus knowing that you're going to have to double that, and that 750 is coming again at the end, starts staring you in the face. And so I always say that's like your gut check moment when you get into that 750. Are you willing to nudge it down a split? Or even if it's 5/10, you're still just nudging it down a little bit. The thing you want to be careful of in a rugby is just never flying off the handle. Rating, I always like to keep that rate high because that gives you the advantage getting into your 500, 250. If you start, excuse me, if you start at 26, 28 on stroke rate and you're having to push through that first 1K, it's going to eat you alive later in the piece. So I'd rather come out of the gates at a 32, 34, staying light on the flywheel so that I can just let my heart rate run a little higher, let my breathing rate run a little bit higher, but I keep a little bit more juice in the legs and the trunk. And then as you wind down, you're really grateful for it because then it's easy to sit at a 34 if you've done it in every prior piece. It's hard if you started at a 28, legs are dead, and then you try to bring the rate up later on. So anyways, you get into your 500, you know what 500 feels like, but you know that you still need to nudge down from your 750 because you want that pace to be decreasing, obviously, with every single piece. So you've got a negative split it. You get into your 250. That one you can have a little bit of fun with. You can let the rate run a little bit higher. Granted, you're only going to have 2 minutes after the fact. But at 750, there's a little bit of surviving on hopes and dreams and rainbows and butterflies that you got to go for. But that's like, honestly, the 750 is your just gut check moment. Are you willing to throw yourself into the hole and then just live in it? And you're going to get there about 250 in, and then you're going to have to churn for 500, which, you always, rower math is always just finding ways to break up the math of the meters that you have left into the smallest chunks humanly possible. So I always think of it as like 3 250s, and I get through my first 250 and then I go, okay, I only have 500 left. I know what that feels like. I just did it. But if I look at this as just a second 250 now, I just got to keep the rate up for another 250 and you just haul ass for the last 750. I mean, you get done with that one and you should be on the floor with no memory of what happened for the final 3 minutes. But yeah,
that's the old classic Greg Glassman line: is if you're on your back looking up at the sky wondering what the hell just happened to you, that workout should have a female name on it. That's why he claimed he named all the Angie, Barbara, Cindy, etc.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite Glassman quotes. All the controversies aside on him. But that's definitely how I'll tell you that it's kind of reassuring to hear a little bit of your breakdown of that as the master rower here of when I would do a 2K, I still think of that if I was going to do one now. I think of it as 4 different 500s and just kind of back to back with no rest. But yeah, like what pace am I keeping? Okay, maybe I'll start a little bit slower than my intended pace, and those middle 200s I'm trying to see if I can get to that intended pace, and then that last one I'm going to see if I can have a little left in the tank. And that's again maybe from those OPEX James Fitzgerald of reward the pacer. And I'll tell you, when I was trying to compete in CrossFit around 2013, 14, when I first started with him, I went back and looked at the log, and he had me rowing, trying to improve my aerobic capacity and my overall functional fitness. He had me row over 500,000 meters on top of all other things. So there was a lot, there was a whole, like, I think it was a 12-week sequence of, we're going to do 10 500s with, slightly different. You're aiming to hit a 145.5. Then the next week you're trying to hit a 145.0 for all these intervals. And it was, and again, playing with the rest intervals and stuff like that. So, and then there would be the 5K, Friday recovery row and things like that. At the end of it, I remember, I don't know if you've probably seen some version of this, was I got my workout sent to me, and it was, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, and it just said AM 2K for time, PM 2K for time. Yeah. And anyone who's not
that sounds so right.
Yeah. And I again, like, it's not the most impressive number, again, as a 5'8" dude. I'll take some pride in that, as my friend Josh here took pride in that workout. I think I hit 656 for both of those, and I think it was literally within 0.2 of a second. It was like 656.4 and 656.2. And they both were, and it was, again, to his credit, to coach's credit there, it was just like, go in, do the thing, get it done. And that's just another day in the office kind of thing, building up that ability to sustain. And that was one of his other big terms there, is just sustain, versus just thriving or trying to go all out. And again, like, it definitely hurt. Don't get me wrong, but but yeah,
James's specificity on his programming was always so impressive. His understanding of energy systems was so groundbreaking for me as a young coach, and just sitting and listening. And I still never absorbed it all, because I never became a coach of his. I was never an athlete of his. But I dipped my toe in by him being at Invictus and us going to competitions in Scottsdale and, dropping in with them. And Invictus at the time, being black sheep, like, we really gravitated to OPT because we were not super welcomed in the CrossFit world. And so we kind of had to find our own way. And so I was always so impressed with his understanding of things and what he was teaching. And it was fascinating. Still to this day, I think about some of his energy systems teachings when I'm thinking about programming. And then the second piece to that is CJ did a workout tangential to that to us one day. And we showed up because I was on the team. And so we showed up, and it was a bookend. The opener of the workout was 50 calories for time on the assault bike. And then we had our whole training session. He didn't tell us this. 50 calories for time on the assault bike. And then we had our training session, and then he ended it with 50 calories for time. But we had to meet or beat our score from the first time. And if we didn't, you got a 1-minute rest and you tried again. And if you didn't get, but you would take away 2 calories. So then it become 48. And if you missed it again, it was another minute rest, and then it was 46 calories. And if you didn't make it, and it was until you could complete it in the time. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life.
Said with all the love behind it.
Yeah, lots of endearment.
All right. Well, 20 minutes of geeking out. If folks are still here, I applaud you.
Sorry.
I appreciate it. And again, we're not fighting for ratings here. Let's go. Let's take it a little bit over to the coaching side and rowing for health. And again, I want to shift this over, outside of the, again, geeking out on all this, and folks who either got lost in the language that we just threw out there, a lot of different technical terms or whatever. But rowing for health is the thing I want to talk to you about a little bit here, and to set up a few other pieces of this conversation. Because again, one of my things is looking at movement vital signs. As a physical therapist, doctor of physical therapy here, and CrossFit fanboy, whatever. Again, I've got a level 3 coach, and I work with seminar staff, all that fun stuff as well. My big thing is defining someone's fitness. So if somebody comes to me and they're 50-year-old, 2 kids, and they're saying, hey, I want to be fitter 10 years from now. You got the Peter Attia looking into your marginal decade, your last decade. If you want to live to 100, what do you need to be able to do when you're 90 years old? All these different metrics. I think rowing is one of those awesome pieces to this puzzle. And that's why I was excited to have you on here as well. And rowing for health, not just, hey, get out there, do a little bit. It's actually very objective. And so the Cooper test is something we talked about a little before we went on. And for anyone not familiar, I'll just give my simple description of it. It's 12 minutes. How far can you go? You can do it running. There's a lot more, I think, data for running. But rowing is a lot less it's got two, it's the plus and the minus, right? You need to have a little bit of technique, and we want to talk about how you get folks to get over that technique hump, and make sure they're efficient there. But yeah, it's a lot less orthopedically demanding in that there's no pounding on the joints. Somebody who has knee pain or foot pain or anything like that, they might be limited in running. So rowing makes an awesome substitute. And again, one last bit to the OPEX and James Fitzgerald of it all. He had the modified Cooper test. I don't know if you ever did that one. It was six minutes on the assault bike. He cut it down to 6 minutes. And then there was the heart. Yeah. And then there was the heart rate recovery. And so you looked at your peak heart rate. You want to also see the heart rate recovery at 1 minute past finish and 2 minutes past finish. A lot less normative data on that. I think the OPEX guys definitely had some of that data on their back end. But in terms of if you're just a general person, you're checking out the Cooper test. Okay, go on a track and see how far you can run in 12 minutes. Then you can say, this is my age, this is my VO2 max, whatever. Same thing with rowing. I think it's a really awesome piece. So I'd love to hear your concept on or takeaway of again, people trying to improve their health. How does rowing play into that? And then we'll get a little more nitty gritty on it.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, your advantage is that let me start with the disadvantages, clear those out. As you mentioned, your disadvantage is the skill. Rowing is high skill, and nobody is born knowing how to row. Nobody just naturally sits on a rowing machine and gets it right the first time. You just don't, because there is nothing kinesthetically guiding about a rowing machine, the rowing stroke in any way whatsoever, in a boat or on a rowing machine. Nothing tells you where you're supposed to be and when, unlike a bike or unlike, just bipedal movement, which we understand as humans because we just do it. So everybody can figure out running to some degree. How good you are is your skill, but like the fundamental of it happens. And so that is rowing's biggest holdup. And that is honestly the reason that I think rowing experiences has not gone bigger than it has, is because of that, right? RowHouse, for example, they were the biggest in the space. They had so many studios around the country, hundreds, and they're kind of folding. And I think a big reason behind that is it's just a monostructural movement with that's high skill demand, and so getting in has a high barrier to entry. That being said, I think that's the real only limiter there. Once you get beyond that, you're sitting in a place where the risk is extremely low. Once you develop the underlying technique and skill set to accomplish it, it's nothing but raw work data. And that's the advantage. And because you can, I liken the concept to the good old Fraser Ali fight. Like, this machine will win every single time because it'll rope-a-dope you. It'll sit there, just take the punches until you have none left to give, and then it fights back. So you have to be very tactical with how you use this thing. You got to be strategic. You have to understand how to moderate your pacing. You have to understand how to dig, when it's time to dig. And then you have to know when it's time to pull back and what you're attempting to accomplish through the work sets that you're doing. So whether you're attempting to work on VO2 max, if you're attempting to work on zone 2 heart rate, if you're attempting to improve FTP, it all depends. You can use all those measurements. You have wattage, you have split, you have calories, whatever you're using as a metric. Obviously, they all are the same thing, just displayed differently. But the machine's value is that beyond skill lies nothing but performance with no limitations. The risk is near zero. And so as far as health goes, the use cases are infinite. How do you need to use it? Even when I see like silly videos of like fitness influencers who are doing like starfishes with 4 different machines together, and they have like a hand and a foot on 4 seats, and they're using it in crazy ways. Like, it still does the thing. Like, can you do some Pilates on it? Pike raises? Yeah.
I actually really do like the adductor kind of slide out going from the inner thighs. I think that's one of the best ways to target that muscle in the CrossFit kind of space.
Sure. So, stand on a 12-inch box and Bob's your uncle. Like, the seat works for it.
Yeah.
I'm not one to rain on people's parade if they're getting value from it. So the point being, for health purposes, I don't know of much better than that, because it is teaching you skill. It is teaching kinesthetic awareness. It is teaching aerobic as well as anaerobic control. The gifts are endless there. And I think for health purposes, that's why so many people gravitate to it. but the biggest roadblock is getting over the initial skill set hump. And that's why a lot of people are unsure of what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to approach it. So
what do you think of that, the Cooper piece of it? Do you think it would, if let's say, again, one of your wonderful videos on your YouTube channel is enough, say, hey, go watch this video, you'll get it. Like, just, it takes 10 minutes. Shane's the best. You'll figure it out. He's very clear, very concise. And I stand by that statement. But let's say we got that and say, okay, you have access to a rowing machine. Would you say 2K row would be your metric you go for, 500 meter? Obviously, these are all looking at different things, but in terms of general health, the Cooper test seems to be the piece that whatever science has given us 12 minutes seems to be that fun little marker of what is your overall health. In your experience and where you're at now, do you think that's one of the better markers for measuring health? If again, technique aside,
I say this only because I have not seen the Cooper test used in rowing, but that's not to explain away its validity. I do think if we're talking about just a 12-minute time period for understanding VO2 max as well as aerobic stability underneath that. We always talk about how a 2K is essentially an aerobic event. So I don't know. You're asking somebody who's fairly biased just because
sure.
I haven't seen that used in our space. We use 2K and 5K. So we kind of, I guess maybe we split the difference between the Cooper or with the Cooper test, like because we're heading up to 20 and we're then at, I don't know, let's just call it 20 and 8 minutes, like we're finding, perhaps deducing the Cooper test between the two tests. I think there's plenty of validity to it. And I think the ultimate answer is anything that puts you outside of really any like 3-4 minute domain and under 20 is going to put you in a space of really having to understand all of the underlying fitness that goes into approaching some kind of piece like that.
Fair enough. So yeah, if somebody, again, I don't know if you're going to be able to put your bias aside here, but I'm curious. If you were starting and you had a garage gym and you had $1,000 to spend, Concept 2 rower, the gold standard for rowing, Echo bike, probably the gold standard for assault bike at this point, and if you had to pick one or advise somebody for general health, or what, or even performance, where are you going with it? Which of the two? You can only pick one.
If I have to pick one, I'm picking rowing.
Fair enough.
and I'm trying to remove my bias from that in that answer. And I'm putting myself, I'm like trying to take off my rowing hat and put on just my coaching hat. Because if I look at those two things, out of any kind of air bike, assault, echo, airdyne, out of all those, there's no skill. I don't gain kinesthetic awareness. I don't gain like better understanding of how my body is supposed to move through space and time. So despite that being a piece of the rowing, if somebody can go through that hump, at least I'm teaching them to be a little bit more responsible for their own body, which to me as a coach, and we're talking health, right? Although you did kind of cover the spread and say performance as well. But I think if I teach you to be more responsible for your own body, you take more ownership over your fitness. And I, anytime we see the air bike put into any kind of workout, it is just a placeholder for suck factor. The only reason you put it there, that's what it does well. It's infinite resistance. And granted, Concept 2 does that as well. And it's not to say you can't do Zone 2 work sitting on an Echo bike, but I believe that the demands of the movement gain secondary, tertiary benefits that you can't gain from an air bike of any kind. Fair enough.
Let's move over to, okay, I do have some logistical questions that you might be the man to answer. I have my garage gym. I actually have an assault bike, an Echo bike. I did get a ski erg, and I've heard you talk about some of the brands, and I'd like to hear a little bit about your thoughts on all the brands. It was the Saidi. Have you even seen that one? It kind of, I think they took over for Titan. They kind of have like the more kind of cheap knockoff brand, but they had a huge Walmart sale a few months ago. They were competing with like Prime Day, Amazon Prime Day. And I just went on there and they had like the ski erg, which is normally like $900. And they had it for like $250. So I was like, I probably don't even have the space for this in my garage. It wasn't a priority for me to get a ski erg. But I said, hey, I'm gonna do this. And so anyway, Saidi, they have a rowing machine as well. But I have the ski machine. I have the rowing, the classic concept too. And again, I've moved a bit. I lived in New York City, went to Dubai, and then I was in Dallas for a little bit working with a celebrity as a private PT. Then I moved to California, then moved here to Colorado. That's where I'm at now. And every place I've gone, the first purchase has been going on Marketplace, finding a freaking Concept 2. Always have a Concept 2 in my garage gym, or even in New York City, I had it at my in my apartment. And which took up a lot, again, minimal space actually in the grand scheme of things. But yes, very, very important for me. So I'm a believer for those, in case I ask some tough questions. So garage gym, I'm on a slant. Okay. Obviously I can still get a stimulus, getting my workout in. I can get it flat. I have to go outside. I can't get flat. I guess I could put like a stabilizing thing on and even it out or whatever. But being on a slant, if I'm measuring my times and I'm trying to hit some splits, if I'm going, if it's on like a 3% incline uphill or downhill, would you say, as an expert in rowing on the Concept 2, say that I need to either modify my expectations of the splits, or I should just get flat? You know, I generally don't like to do it on an angle.
Yeah, nobody does.
Yeah.
If you're in a permanent situation and you know what your grade is, I would level the machine. Do I have like maybe a 0.5% grade in my garage? Yeah, I do. It bugged me for the first year, and now I just I've lost the feeling for it. If you're, any kind of grade that you feel it, you sit there and you go, okay, well, is it better to point uphill or is it better to point downhill? Because on one, I have to push more of myself through the drive if I'm pointing downhill, and on the other, I have to pull more of myself as I move through the recovery, which is better. And I don't know that has ever been answered. And I've thought about it hundreds of times to find the answer. And I don't know that I have. So I think the best answer long-term, if you can, is level. And sometimes it's as simple as just grabbing some of those wood shims from Home Depot or whatever department, home improvement store you have, and just tossing a couple of wood shims or buy the plastic ones so they don't degrade over time, and just put them under the wheels. Shim yourself up if you can. And if it's bad enough, like maybe you just do some kind of DIY. You take like some kind of an angled cut on a 2x4 so that you can just pop it under there over time.
Yeah. Fair enough. One other advanced question I got to ask while we got you here is, on a few other episodes, and this is the standard. Again, we talked about Angela Hart there. Again, I'm pretty confident that was who taught it. In my CrossFit competitive days, going back to like 2010, and working in some of these seminar staff and all that fun stuff. In CrossFit, I believe it was always taught that for most Metcons workouts in CrossFit, they actually encourage like a damper of 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. And now I know, and I've always, I remember hearing this, and this was always stood out to me, like professional rowers who row on the water, which you're under that. We haven't gone deep into your story there, but again, you've told those stories many times. So folks, we can check out the Ready State podcast, check them out on the WTF Gym Talk podcast. What was the other one? Our friend Eric Malzone, who connected us here, the podcast collective, The Future of Fitness. So I know.
And if it makes you feel any better, all of those medals are from the last year and a half. Those are on water. Those are on water medals.
Why would that make me feel better?
If you want to know that I do indeed row on the water, those are national championship medals. So
his bona fides are legit, folks. But yeah, back to the Concept too, because I again, as much as awesome as it is, and again, as much as I would love to get out on the water, and again, like short of connecting, and maybe we'll be best friends after this, and I'll come out to San Diego and you'll get me on the water. I'd love that. I'd love it. But outside of that, most people probably are never going to get on the water. And again, having been in that space, like I always thought it'd be really cool. I always thought it'd be really cool if CrossFit did some kind of rowing challenge on a water. And actually, you might know this too. They had that thing where it was like 3 different seats and they had to connect them. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the sliders.
Thing? The sliders, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw that like 2014 randomly and never again. Was that about right?
Yeah, I think that year or sometime in that range.
Yeah.
I actually took Team Invictus to row on the water pre-games in case it showed up. So we did like a day of coaching on the water, and then I did a day in the gym where I brought slides and set the whole team up on slides to be like, this is what slides feel like. Y'all got to get used to this in case this shows up, because I don't know that rowing would have ever, I held my breath for years, like, oh, please let them put rowing on the water in the games. liability, and it would have been ugly. It would have been like the second coming of the softball toss thing. And so like the slides were the best way of doing that, was, forcing them to work together and learn how to work together without making it look horrific. So anyways, sorry, I drifted from your question.
Yeah. No, that's all right. The original, the other part of that question, we did go off there, is so the damper, so professional rowers on the water, 3 to 4 is the closest simulation to the feel. And you did, there's also the drag factor for anyone who's really advanced. You can check on there. And I think I heard you say something like 117 is your drag factor you're kind of hanging out at.
You're well researched.
Yes, sir. And 3 to 4 is your damper. And again, that I've heard most professional rowers, again, that's what simulates the best feel of the water and that they're used to. And again, when you were breaking down our friend's workout earlier, you're talking about that higher stroke volume or strokes per minute, right? And that 30 number, which to me, again, the way I've always been taught to row. And again, maybe that James Fitzgerald or whatever, I'm much more comfortable in like a 24, 25 stroke per minute. And I was always taught 6, 7 is the most efficient place. And that's just what I learned. And again, I think I heard you say that of ultimately it's what do you feel most efficient at? And, that's the challenge there, right? So again, if you were coaching someone like me, would you say, no, I want you to just force the 3 or 4 and get used to it. And that's how you're going to get more fit over the next, 10, 20, 30 years, and get better at picking up that stroke rate versus, especially for the competitive side of it. So yeah, again, there was a lot in there. I don't know if there was a specific question, but just wanted to touch on the damper of it all, drag factor for those not familiar. You have to go and click through and like get a sense of what that drag factor is. It's a lot more complex. I'll give the dust of it all. If there's a rusty machine or older machine, it's outside. I went to, you've probably been to, what was it? Kauai CrossFit. It was outdoors.
Yeah.
They had so those machines, you could hear it like as you're pulling, it's like, so I would not want to do a 2K row for time on that and think of justification there. But so yeah, damper, I'd love to hear a little bit of your thoughts on that for the general and advanced rower.
Yeah, the best way to approach the who should hold what damper setting is 6 most efficient. There is no perfect damper setting and drag factor. It's just an opening for the discussion. So whether you choose 6 or 7 or 3 or 4, to me it doesn't really matter, because the more knowledgeable you become and the better you get at the thing, typically the lower the drag factor goes. Damper setting, drag factor. I'm using them in parallel at the moment because they are in parallel.
Yeah.
So the more efficient you get, the lower they go, because you find the efficiency of the movement. And typically the higher the damper setting goes, the more somebody is using it to compensate for poor mechanics, is typically the answer, because it generates false resistance, is the way that I like to put it. It's giving you a false sense of resistance because you don't have to use good mechanics to connect with the resistance when it's up at a 10, 9, 8, right? And so, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is move your body in space and time, connect with the speed of the flywheel with as little resistance, as little objection from the machine to connecting to its resistance. And then you want to, as efficiently as you can, spin the flywheel up and send it on its way so that it keeps spinning as long as possible before you recover, pick up the flywheel, send it spinning again. It's kind of like you're catching it, slinging it, catching it, slinging it. And the more efficient you get at that, the less resistance you want, because you can toss it further with less work.
I'm just going to jump in real quick. We have someone jumping in, and they asked also, they're in Germany, and they said, why is this on my timeline? It's 11 p.m. here. Don't know the answer to that. But they also kind of jumping in mid conversation here. Just wanted to clarify, since they're here live, that we're talking about the Concept 2 rowing machine specifically. We did touch on rowing in the water, but yes, I wanted to bring it back to you there. And that was another cue I always would give to. Think of turning a bicycle upside down. You grab the bicycle, the wheel, and you're trying to pull it. I think, again, I'll give Angela. I'm pretty sure that was Angela Hart again.
Yeah. You're trying to keep it at top speed, not grab it and restart it.
Yeah,
every time.
But again, for I guess my devil's advocate pushback there is let's say, again, an open workout, CrossFit open workout. Obviously, you're trying to sustain, as we touched on also. But if you're trying to get, let's say, 10 calories, and then you're going over to wall balls and burpees or something like that. 10 calories to me, mentally at least, if it just said do 500 meters, then I think that's the part we train, and we just want to figure out how we're most consistent there. But to me, keeping that stroke rate low feels like I'm keeping my heart rate low. And so if I'm a powerful athlete and I can deadlift 500 pounds, doing like theoretically doing 10 really strong pulls, or it ends up being like 12 really strong pulls to get me 10 calories feels more efficient, at least psychologically, maybe not physiologically. I don't know. I played with this over time, but again, challenging you to say if it was on a 3 or 4, I feel like I would have to do like 30 strokes in that same time frame. And maybe it's a little faster, maybe it's more efficient, maybe it's less powerful.
So the way that I would help you understand that, help the followers, viewers understand that, is you can use every damper setting to accomplish the same split, the same outcome. You just have to do it either with more force or more speed. It's an exchange. You choose which. So depending on the type of athlete you are, the lower the damper setting, the more speed you have to apply through the drive, because you don't have as much resistance. So you can be faster. And so your question and your example of, let's say I'm a power athlete and I can drive, 500 pounds, no problem. You tell me 500 pound deadlift, I'm like, okay. Are you better fast twitch or slow twitch?
Fast.
Okay. So if you're a good fast twitch athlete, would you not want to take advantage of that by being able to be fast twitch, but not have to experience as much resistance because you're fast? So you can create better acceleration than a slow athlete. So you actually get the advantage in a lower damper setting situation because you're not going to experience the same level of fatigue. Of course, now this is given good mechanics, right? Given good mechanics, you have a better fast twitch at the catch, which means that you are faster to be able to pick up the flywheel with less resistance, and you have the ability to move it faster. So the advantage to you would be that you don't have to take a ton of strokes. You can still keep a lower stroke rate. But because the machine, think about it this way, on the drive, it measures force, acceleration, and distance. They're just levers, more force, less acceleration, less force, more acceleration. Distance, obviously, like applied distance is important. The cue I like to give is length is only good if it's good length. Getting long is not at all costs is not useful. You got to make yourself as long as you can functionally be on the machine, right? Like that's why laying back and pulling the handle to your throat doesn't improve things for you, because you've passed a point of effectiveness on the machine.
I go all the way overhead.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
to kiss the chain as it touches your nose. And
I'll tell you a really funny story though about that. In New York City, around 2012, there was a decathlon with all of the big, all the big financial organizations, and they would send out like their best athlete, and they competed, and it all went to charity. And so it was like Morgan Stanley versus Goldman Sachs and all this kind of stuff. And they brought in us. I was with CrossFit NYC at the time, and the year before they had like Equinox judges as their judges, and one of the events was like dips, and some guy got like 77 dips because he's doing these like partial range of motion dips. So anyway, they brought us in to uphold the standard. That was a big thing with CrossFit. All the negatives of CrossFit reputation. One of the big things these guys understood was that at least we upheld the standard, and that was a big part of the definition of fitness and all that good stuff. But one of the events was a 500 meter for time, and the guy who ended up winning, and there was the coach there. Mike Creamer, I don't know if you came across him at any point. He's I think he was based in Boston. He was in New York City for a while. He's an Irish guy. And anyway, but he was there. He was available to like help coach these guys beforehand and this, that. But I remember looking at him, and I knew him from the CrossFit gyms we were both at. And the guy doing it was a 500 meter for time. I think the guy ended up with like a 110 or 111, like pretty legit. But his first few pulls, I think he did like 10 pulls, and he was a big guy already. But he pulled overhead to pretty much the extent of where the chain got him. Yeah. And that was and all 10 of the events that they did, you could tell this dude like planned every strategy. So not to take away from your point, and again, for the average bear, I think out there, pulling overhead is not really necessarily going to do anything. But he realized it has to be, if you can maintain that intensity through the pull. That's what he figured out how to do. And he was a very powerful dude. And he just pulled it overhead. I think the first, I want to say 200, 250 meters. And then eventually he settled down and kept pulling and tried to hold on, pull into his chest the normal way. But I remember Mike and I looking at each other like, whoa. Like that was the first time. We're like, this dude.
I mean, you said he was a bigger guy though.
Yeah.
I mean, I would counter that by saying the guy was probably just putting the most mass on the handle at the beginning of the stroke, and he was just letting it continue. But there's a diminishing, like, think about how much strength you have in that external rotation overhead position. Like, there's like really no strength to that movement, right? Because if I'm laid back,
but I guess
and I'm essentially in like a, almost like a Sorensen hold, and I'm externally rotating a handle, like there's no, sure, it's continuing things, but I think his advantage was mostly his mass up front of being able to lever it. But you look at guys who win like the 100-meter world record, the guy who just set the 100-meter world record. It's not rowing. It's not the rowing stroke. And that's not to take away from the record. You're just manipulating the machine. Because that's the record is how fast can you make the machine go? Who cares if it looks like rowing or not?
Sure.
There's like definitely I think a lot of people get hung up on, they're like, oh, that's not good rowing. It's like, yeah, but that's not the question. The question is, who's the fastest person at this distance or time on this machine? Who cares how it goes? The guy that just set the 100-meter world record, Swiss dude, I just interviewed him. He wears like power flats, like the ballet power slippers. And he puts his foot stretchers all the way up and his toes curl over the top of the foot stretchers. I've never seen anything like it, but he does it so that he doesn't.
Schallbetter.
Yeah, Louis Schallbetter.
However you say it.
He
did it in 12.1 seconds.
Yep. So and if you see a picture, you see his toes curled over the top of the foot stretchers. It's wild to see, but he did it because by generating any vertical force increases the opportunity for him to pop off the seat, but also it takes away his ability to lever himself against the resistance on the machine. So is that rowing? No. Is he a rower? Yes. So, you can't the guy's a rower as well, but to do this thing specifically, or in your case, to do 500 meters, like sometimes it just doesn't look like rowing. Sometimes you just have to make yourself as effective of a lever as humanly possible.
For sure. Yeah. That's the yes. And that's the big takeaway I want folks to get from that is it's understanding the machine. And again, same thing as the assault bike versus the echo bike versus the Airdyne, versus, folks, I always go on Marketplace and I'm like tempted to get one. There's always people giving away these ones from like 1970. I'm like, it's just the vintage of it alone is
the old Schwinns.
Cool. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's bring it back to beginner rowing. Bit of a shift. We kind of went backwards on this. We started super geeked out. We went to kind of little more granular questions, and now we're going all the way to beginner rowing. And so, like you mentioned, and I think I want to again re-highlight that fact that that's probably the biggest limiter for folks starting rowing is the technique. And now you can get on there and you can have that technique and you can still get a workout. And I see people all the time like, look at my 70-year-old mom. Like I got her this thing as a gift and she's doing it. And I want to be like, her technique is not very good. Like she could be doing better. She's going to hurt her.
The coach inside you is crying.
Yeah. But yeah, here's the question also again from Josh, our original person posting his workout is, I'll set the whole question up. Rowing is one of the things that small technical tweaks can provide a measurable return, as we're talking about. What is your favorite training story where you provide an athlete with a light bulb moment that turned their engine into the next gear? And what's your favorite general tweak to provide that to the average rower?
Oh, man. Okay, this is a good one. I haven't thought about this in forever. Okay, so as a coach, like sometimes you just have to kind of throw out your toolbox because like nothing's working. Sometimes you have an athlete who's like very poor kinesthetic awareness. They don't have good mind-body connection. They're like neither a visual, auditory, nor kinesthetic learner. And you're just like, what do I do with this person? Like they want to get better, but like I can't figure out how to make it happen.
I might be publishing a case study on the most extreme example of that. So, but yes, go ahead. I'll let you.
Yeah. So, when you get into those scenarios as a coach, you're like sitting there on the floor and like racking your brain, how do I make this work for this person? Because no matter what I say, show, or have them drill, nothing is changing. Or the instant after the drill is done, they go right back to what they were doing, but they have no idea that they're doing it. It's not, there's no malice involved at all, or no ego. They're like humbling themselves to you, but they just can't get it done. So there, we had this client could not figure out how to reach extension with his spine and how to marry his head to his trunk. He was like this, every stroke was he was doing this with his neck. His spine was just like permanently rounded, but then he'd stand up and he would like understand how to stand up. I was like, nothing I threw at him worked. And I eventually reached the end of my toolbox and went, I've got to get creative here. And so I walked around the gym. This is back in the day at Invictus. I had a rowing club. And so I started walking around the gym looking for tools, and eventually landed on, I took a PVC pipe, put it along his spine, and then I took 3 different bands. We had like the small band for like knees doing, you know, like adduction with bands at the knees. Yep. So I took a band, put it around his forehead, and connected the PVC pipe to the back of his head. Took another band, tied it around under his shoulders, and put another band around his hips, so that the PVC, it was like, we called it the flagpole. It like became a thing just for him, and attached it to him. And we had a 10K that day for practice, and he had to row the entire 10K with a PVC pipe attached to his spine. And it clicked. And I was like, oh my God, we did it. It worked finally. And then we never had the issue again. Like, he understood it. He needed so much tactical processing, you know, tactile processing, that he could just keep feeling it. Every time there was a mistake, it was there to remind him over and over and
tactical
over.
Too. It's tactical.
It's well. Tactical, tactile cueing. And then what was the second part of the question?
What is your favorite general tweak to provide that same concept to the average rower, not the most extreme example? I think I know the answer based on geeking out on you before.
Yeah, watching my stuff before. I'm a big, there are 2. One is just a cue that I think creates really great processing and paradigm shift for the way that people perceive the movement. And that is push, don't pull. We used to put that on shirts.
Nice.
Because when people perceive the rowing movement as a pulling movement, you get the arm break, you get the trying to get the handle to you. Like, that's the most critical element of the stroke, when you perceive it as a pull. Right? You're constantly clamoring to get the handle to your body. If you can change your perception of it to a pushing movement, yes, thank you. If you can change that perception to pushing the machine away from you, when we think push, we tend to perceive push as a using of the legs. You're trying to, you know, scoot that machine forward. However you view it, pushing that machine tends to add a lot of value and can have a big impact on people's performance.
I'll jump in real quick. Yeah, I love it. And I'll jump in to really say, like, that's what clicked for me, even going to the Angela Hart Concept 2 certification there. I thought of it as a deadlift. And that's a big cue for deadlifting, is you're trying to push away from the ground. You're just standing up, you're pushing that away. Same thing with bench press. You're trying to like break the bar, all these kind of cues. So it's that difference of closed kinetic chain versus open kinetic chain. So as we geek out on it, so I just want to reinforce that. Yeah, I love that. And I'm, glad. So what was your second one?
The second is, which is more of an actual change in the way that you row, but is the heels down concept.
That's the one I thought you were going to.
Yeah, I was assuming so. And the reason being, I always say that the end product of good rowing, your heels are lifting. They are. Your heels flash. It's not a big lift, but the heels flash up. And that's to give you a little bit more depth into the catch when you reach physical limitations of your ankle mobility. But it needs to be intentional. We need to understand how to apply force through the foot stretchers to begin with. We can't do that if our heels are off the ground and we've lost kinesthetic sense of where ground is. When we stand on the ground, our heels naturally touch the ground, but when we're horizontal, we don't need the same feedback. And so your heels can be up and you're just on your toes, and you're like, well, I am connected. Right? You're like, but your heels aren't down. And you tell people to put their heels down, they're like, they are down. You're like, I can fit my hand under there. That's not, your heels aren't touching the surface. And so I love teaching heels down to beginners because it fixes 5, 6, 7 different downstream errors that occur as a result of the heel being able to lift. The heel goes down, all of a sudden we tension the posterior chain. Heel goes down, we stop the seat from slamming in to the ankles, heels, which is going to slow down recovery. And teaching people how to recover in the midst of the stroke is a challenge to begin with. So the heels down concept is a really great learning tool. Makes a world of difference for most people. And then once you've gotten very competent with the stroke with heels down, it's much easier 2 months from now for me to go, okay, let the heel lift. You get it now, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I get it. I got to roll onto the foot. I can lift my heel, but I still have to place the heel down in order to create connection and fully push the machine away. And you're like, okay, cool. You can lift your heels now. Now you understand why you're doing it. You're moving with intent. I can allow you to flash the heels because you know now how to apply power through the foot. Great. Let the heel lift, give yourself a little bit of extra length. And it's like, oh, freedom, wonderful. Now I understand the why. But if we go the other way and I let you get away with heels lifting, I have to spend my entire time trying to fix all these other issues. Meanwhile, I'm leaving this gaping hole of a movement break in the mechanics. So I like heels down for that purpose.
Yeah, and again, funny that that's a drill in Olympic weightlifting. Flat foot cleans and things like that, as well as that's what we see in squats a lot with beginners, right? Lifting the heels off. But yeah, the other way I would do that with rowers in my time is just don't put the foot in the strap. And then you kind of have to. That's a kind of cheap way, I guess, to get to the same thing. But yeah, I love it. Let's wrap up, man. Respectfully, your time here. We're coming up on a full hour. Appreciate you hanging out here, and any of the listeners made it this far. Well, the final question, I guess, is you kind of alluded to the fact that rowing, this biggest limiter right now is that technique. We talked a lot of technique things, but and on Eric's Future of Fitness, you guys talk past, present, and future, and a little bit of that. We alluded to some of the clubs out there, the RowHouse, the City Row, all that kind of stuff as they're kind of dwindling. I think CrossFit's kind of still holding its own in the grand scheme of things, but sort of kind of little fading. But I guess, that's the question. I didn't quite get a clear answer listening to your episode. And that was 2022 as well, as we were coming out of COVID a little bit. So here we are in 2025. So what are we in? September 2025. Where do you think, and what is your hope for getting rowing to the mass, especially with this aging population, all the healthcare crises that we can go into? How do we get it out there? Do you think there's any hope? Do you think that it's just going to come down to every listener person catching this episode, going out there, getting a machine, learning to use it, and is it more grassroots, or what do you got for us?
Yeah,
give us some hope.
Yeah. Okay. So the future of rowing, if we're talking about like the state of rowing right now, I think the direction that rowing is heading is seeing more broad spectrum rowing. I liked this. There's a comment that I read a while back that essentially, rowers tend to be purists, and we really get in the way of progress of rowing. Like, if you're not a rower, we're like, judgmental of anybody who's not a rower. It's terrible. It makes it very hard for rowing to grow as a sport. But there are new forms of rowing that are coming out. LA 28 is going to have coastal rowing, which will be the first time that's been in the Olympics. And coastal rowing is frankly way more exciting than flat water rowing. Watching rowing 2,000 meter sprints sucks. It is not fun to go to a regatta because unless there's like streaming happening, unless there's, a drone following the race, really tough. You just sit on the shore and you're like, sit there for 5 minutes, and then 15 seconds, you see the boats go by, and then you hope that your team won. Like, it's not exciting to watch in that sense. And so from a global perspective, rowing suffers from a PR issue in that way. Coastal rowing, I think, is one way to help with that. Because coastal rowing, the athletes start on the sand, the boats are sitting in the surf, race starts, athletes run to the boat, jump in, they have to row out through the waves, and they only row out, I think, 250 meters, round a buoy, race back in, get caught by waves, boats get tossed, athletes are thrown out of boats, and then it's the first athlete to run across the finish line. So it's fun, like a little bit of NASCAR, like everybody's waiting.
Sounds like CrossFit. Sounds like the old school CrossFit.
Yeah, it's far more entertaining. And so rowers need to accept that's a valid form of rowing, just like cycling. Road cyclists have to accept that gravel riding is a particular type of cycling and BMX is a particular type. They're all cycling, right? But they just are different.
I'll give the quick parallel about rock climbing too. Just in the Olympics, I think a lot of criticism that they added speed climbing.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of the technical folks who are just not as fast twitch again, and they can't compete on the speed climbing, so they're not even competing in that as that's 1/3 of the scoring there. So yeah, similar kind of concept.
Yep, exactly. And so indoor rowing serves a similar purpose. And so I think where the future of rowing goes and where it needs to go in order for rowing to continue to succeed, I think we've seen the wind down, the coming and going of rowing studios. I think it belongs in the hands of individual studio owners having a rowing studio here. Like if they can succeed, great, good for them. But I think the conglomerate RowHouse kind of model is just not, it's a monostructural movement. Like people, that structure just burns out over time. People get bored with one thing over and over. If they love it enough, they can buy their own machine. I don't think they need to sign up for a class to do that. Because in a year, you've already paid what you would have paid for a rower to be in your house anyways. So I do think it goes into the hands, like you said, the grassroots movement. Like I think it goes into the hands of the users. If people can get to a rowing machine, fantastic. But I believe it's a more holistic picture of rowing. I think rowing comes out in different ways. Red Bull does some kind of cool stuff with rowing. They just had a tug of war event. Red Bull, I think it's called like tug of row or something. Two boats facing off with a rope tied between them. And you have to row to try and get the flag across the line. Boats flip, people fall out. They've done some other cool stuff in Switzerland where like the teams, there were 8s and they had to cross 3 different lakes, and the teams would have to portage their boats. Like they'd get to the end of one lake and they'd have to put it on their shoulders and run the boat to the next lake, drop it in, race across the lake, pick it up again, run it. So stuff like that, if we can lean into that, I think that creates a future of enjoyment and different ways of experiencing rowing. And then eventually the hope, is people find their way to rowing in whatever form they may find accessible. Rowing doesn't look great from the surface. It looks very snooty and hard to get into. I have a very strong passion for, in the long term, trying to find ways of fixing that, making it more accessible for people who might not normally find rowing, and help working with rowing clubs to be able to change that, right? Actual rowing clubs on the water. If somebody calls, you got to answer the phone. If somebody sends you an email, you have to respond. And you have to make it welcoming, give them opportunities to come to learn to row sessions, to find rowing on the water, because I think that is where the real connection to the sport comes from. And when you find that, it's a beautiful sport, but it can be very intimidating to get into. Indoor rowing, I think, is the great way to get the foot in the door for people. Test it out, see if you like the movement, see if you like having to learn the skill. And from there, you can kind of blossom into finding other bits and pieces of rowing, should you have access to them. Maybe you end up buying your own boat and you just row on a lake nearby. There are plenty of people that do that, including members of our program. They just have a lake nearby. They buy a boat. They like to go row on their own. Cool. It's fun. They enjoy the real thing after they've been in indoor for a while.
Yeah, we're in Colorado, landlocked, obviously, and I miss the ocean, and I do need to start exploring. I did the Boulder half Ironman last year, and I was like, oh man, I should start swimming more. Indoor pools are just, there's such a time suck. So, but yeah, I definitely want to get out there, and you got me motivated, man.
Are you in Boulder?
Boulder County, yes. Erie,
okay.
Erie, technically.
There is rowing in Boulder. I mean, Boulder has a rowing team at the school.
Yeah.
And there's a rowing club, I think it's called Rocky Mountain Rowing Club, that operates out of the reservoir there.
We've been here like 4 years, and I'm sure I feel like there's so much stuff going on. And again, I know you have 2 young ones as well. I got a kid turning 3 next month, and so that's been, that's been a primary.
Right.
Yeah, that's my excuse at least. One other piece on this future of rowing. I don't know if you've seen anything with like Hyrox. Like, would that be some? They currently is not one of the events of Hyrox, correct?
No, it is rowing and skiing.
It is
both. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. There you go. Do you think that's moving things in the right direction there?
Certainly, and I think Hyrox is picking up where CrossFit left off. And like F45 seems to kind of be flailing too. Like F45 had that for a while because they use Concept 2s. They integrated it a lot. I just don't know that like F45 is long for this world in the capacity that it was 3 years ago. But Hyrox, absolutely, like use the rowing machine. People are, it gives people exposure to it. Same with the ski erg. And I like the ski erg for a lot of the same reasons that I like the rowing machine. And I think they're a great torchbearer for it at the moment. And therein lies the value of the machine, right? It's flexible in its use. Spartan races used them for a period of time. Rowers would be at Spartan races. People can kind of pick up this piece of equipment that's incredibly resilient and then can like plant it into an area where we want to test people's capacity, put the rower in, and it works well for that. So,
and generally, are they using Concept 2? Is that's still in everything, or is there any? Again, we didn't dive into that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think before we started, you were talking about the Echo rower and whatnot. That's Rogue's attempt. I believe, as far as I know, CrossFit Games may be the only competition. I mean, maybe, you know, your other CrossFit competitions may be switching over to an Echo rower. But as far as continuing to use the machine within the industry, I think Concept 2 just still stands as the gold standard to it. I don't know that the Rogue has like a long-term plan to unseat that. I don't see them taking that over.
What's the 2K big thing up in Boston?
Crash Bees?
Yes. Crash Bees is that, and I think they're still using Concept 2.
Yeah. World Rowing Indoor Championships, still Concept 2, Crash Bees. Yeah. Every rowing club in the world still using Concept 2s.
Yeah.
University club, rowing club, juniors club. If you are involved in rowing, you're using a Concept 2. There are some other machines that exist out there that are more specialty based, that exist in rowing clubs, but they don't have them in the same quantity that they do Concept 2s.
Yeah, and like I said, I've moved, I think, at least 4 different cities. First thing I do is I find the best quality, cheapest Concept 2, and I think when we moved here to Colorado, no, I think I brought it from California, but anyway, yeah, I'd say you've alluded again. I don't want to just echo your words, but the fact that, you know, these things are very durable. When they do need little fixes, that it's easy enough. You can, and their customer service is pretty darn good. So you can, you know, reach out if the display has an issue, if the fan belt has an issue. The fan belt's a little intimidating to open up and play with and make sure it gets back in properly, but outside of that, it's still I think, you know, relatively straightforward. And I'm definitely, I'll echo pardon the pun of the alternative rowing machine. I'll echo the fact that it's a great investment. It's a great piece of equipment, and again, they tend to be pretty cheap on the Facebook Marketplace if you're looking for an entry point there, folks. So Shane Farmer, thank you for joining us. Again, I feel like we can keep going. There's a lot here, a lot of meat on this bone. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2. I am motivated. I took a little note to start offering even like a learn to row little basic thing if anyone wants to get into it. And as well, it's not something I'm currently like promoting, but I think it is low-hanging fruit that folks could probably just learn to row and then figure out where the mobility type points are, and that's a whole piece of the future of fitness as well. And then that kind of, we mentioned some of those metrics. We didn't talk about like a 500-meter row as a standard kind of metric, but just like running, right, folks, you can test your 100-meter dash, you can test your 1 mile, you can test your 5K, you can test your marathon all the way up there. Same thing with rowing. I like those shorter distances myself as a more fast twitch. Consider myself an athlete, but 500-meter row, 2K, the 12-minute Cooper test, like you said, kind of splitting the difference, and then that 5K time. Those are really good metrics to, I think, put in there. And so I'm inspired, and again, I'm going to see what I can do, and maybe I'll touch back with you on maybe doing some challenges and things. And I know Concept 2 also has some of these challenges. I know they have, like, you got a certificate if you're signing up through them and logging your workouts. I did try to do 1,000,000 meters last year in 2024. I did not succeed. Again, toddler life and all that, I'll blame it on. And we traveled to Greece. This is another funny little last bit is the resort we were in on the island of Rhodos. They did have a rowing machine, but like I was pushing pretty hard, and like it showed that it was like a 240, and I was like, no, I'm going like 145. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it was not cool. I'm like, and I was just tracking my meters. So I'm like, yeah, this is not a good use of my time. And I need the credit in that sense. But for anyone who wants to try that challenge, it's 2,700 meters, a little more than 2,700 meters a day, at a kind of conversational, relaxed pace outside of doing strong workouts. You need to be, it's about 20 minutes or so, I think, around there. So maybe a little longer if you're a little slower. But so I just didn't have 20 or 30 minutes a day to jump on there. And then I'm like, I don't want this to be my only form of exercise. So.
Well, we have a fun challenge that we do every November called Rowvember, We send out a workout every single day for the month, and the goal is, can you row every day for the month of November? And it's free.
That's on darkhorserowing.com.
Yeah, Rowvember.com, actually. So we make it even easier, but it's just, the workouts vary. Some days they're short, some days they're long. The goal is just to, it's more of a sense of accomplishment. Can you row every single day for 30 days to try and make it fun for people and do something just like free to give back to the community? So
love it.
Yeah.
All right, sir. So best places to connect with you is darkhorserowing.com.
Yep.
There you go.
ShaneFarmer.com. Rowvember.com.
Rowvember.com. We'll try to get all those links in the show notes for folks. Shane Farmer, thank you. I didn't even ask you about your farm. As you have chickens now. What do you got now? That's the following all your different podcasts. I think you had how many chickens now?
We have 15 at the moment. We had 3 ducks. They didn't last.
Sorry.
Yeah, they're not. We had runner ducks. They're very noisy. They broadcast their location all the time, and they don't go inside to the coop at night. So the term sitting duck makes a lot more sense when you own them. So yeah, they got nabbed by predators, but the chickens, we've got 15. So we have a highly productive orchard and farm at the farm.
Still no room for cows. I heard you talking about the cows with
it'd be fun, but I don't see oh yeah, you listen to Anders and I run on. Yeah. No. I think that'd be fun. All my family back in Minnesota they're kind of moving down that way. So I've got 2 cousins who have enough property that they can have cows, horses, sheep, that whole thing. So
yeah, that's our dream here. I think we need a few folks to come together and do something like that. But that's what we're working on out here for sure. All right, Mr. Shane Farmer, thank you for your time. We'll sign off. I hope everyone got at least 1% better.